Today what I'm going to show you are a couple basic techniques that you can use within Davinci Resolve. I'm in Davinci Resolve 15. These techniques are to soften skin and just sort of enhance the overall appearance. So your subjects are very pleased with the final outlook. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to look at my entire image here and just see what the motion is. This is a very simple shot because all we're doing is just looking straight into the camera with little to no motion aside from when the hat goes on here at the beginning. So the first thing that I'm going to do now is establish a little bit of a look. So this was shot in hybrid log gamma using the GH5, and I have a LUT that I like to use for that. It's a Leeming LUT. Panasonic HLG kind of brings in a little bit of the red back. The white balance is a little off here, so I'm going to correct that first before we go. A little adjustment here. Alternatively, you can cheat and just select something white, and that's way better than what I was doing. Okay. Get a little bit of the curves in here. I like to disable the RGB and just use the Y. Pump that up a little. Get a nice contrast, not too much. Another thing I like to do in DaVinci Resolve is use the false color from timeandpixels.com. It really helps you get the proper exposure, especially with skin tones. An image with green, gray, and pink, or skin tones with the green, gray, and pink is usually a good range to be in. So you can see there. So before or after. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now, as you can see, you see a lot of detail in the skin because this was shot in 4K, and 4K essentially takes on way too much detail, and oftentimes this can be unflattering. You get a lot of shine here. Yeah, so what we're going to do is create a new node. Now, there are two ways to do that. One is using a new built-in plugin that Resolve has released, Blackmagic has released. That is the Face Refinement OpenFX tool. Right here. So why don't we just start with that, because this one's pretty easy. It's very straightforward. What it will do is once you click analyze up here, it will analyze the image and find the face and put an overlay there, and it will track it throughout the entire shot as long as the face is not obstructed. And as you can see here, it was obstructed, so we lost our track. But let's assume there were no hands going in front or behind. I'm actually not sure how to correct this track when it has been altered based on the movement, when it has been interfered with. For example, keyframing it or interpolating the motion in between two different spots. So this is actually one of the reasons I don't use this plugin too often, but if we just had her face unobstructed for the entire shot, it would come out with a track just like this, which is pretty good. And you can check it out. You can click over here on Show Mask, and you can see that it's pretty good. It's got the lips figured out, the eyes figured out, and it seems to have a pretty solid mask on the skin. So once that's there, I will turn overlay off. And then this is a really cool tool because you can do smoothing here. You can change the size of the detail. You can bring detail back in. It's kind of just like a sharpening there. So really important, if you turn up the smoothing, you also want to turn up the detail because you don't want it to look like you've smoothed the skin. That's not desirable. So just kind of finesse the details until you're happy. You can even add or remove contrast. If you're going to do any of this, just be very soft. You can also change the size of the face mask. So let's have a look at the overlay. You can change, you can change the size there. And you can also adjust the softness and refine it, which is kind of like a sharpening of the mask and a blur. Now, here are all the options. Once you have established a mask, once Resolve has analyzed the image and created a mask that will stay with the face throughout the entire image, and you're happy with that, you can go down and look at all these tools here. You have color grading, you have eye retouching, you have lip retouching, you have blush retouching, forehead retouching, cheek retouching, chin retouching, and a global blend, which is an overall mix of everything you've done with the original state of the image. So if you wanted to go back to normal, you would move this slider over to the right. It's always nice to blend a little bit with the original image so it does not look too processed, because you do not want it to look too processed. Now let's look at color grading. You can adjust the mid-tone luminance. Be very careful with these. Usually if you go beyond 0.1, it starts to look really fake. Color boost, if you want to do saturation. Just be really careful. Tint, you can go all the way to the red or all the way to the greens. You can desaturate shadows, all of this good stuff. Again, be very careful not to go too far. Shine's a big one, very popular, that I use often, but again, be very gentle on your correction. Usually around like 0.2, 0.3 is good enough. I don't really touch the color grading section here too much, because usually I'm at a place where I'm happy with the color and happy with the exposure, and you just don't want it to look too fake. Eye touching, this section is really cool because you can sharpen the eyes directly. I'll just do a really drastic example here so you can see it on your end. So that's before, that's after, before, after. So this is nice. The sharpness will really draw the attention of the audience to the eyes. So I usually put that around like 0.1, 0.2, again, not too much. Brightening of the eyes, that will brighten the whites. Actually, that will brighten the entire eye. So be careful of that, because you don't want to lose the beautiful detail in the eye. So when I brighten the eye, which is pretty rare, I won't go above 0.1. 0.1 is kind of like my limit on all of these corrections. Highlight is really nice because it will, the track has automatically created a sort of raccoon eye face track right in here. So that will, if you slide this to the right, you're going to get what looks like a little bit of a spotlight going into the eye, which is nice. Eye bag removal is really good if you have somebody that hasn't slept. You can turn that up a little bit to taste, and that will just fix the area right in here. So again, these are all tracks that have happened within the track. Instead of manually having to qualify something here, create a shape here, and track manually, it's done it all automatically for me, which is super nice. Lip retouching, you can change hue, saturation. You can smooth the upper lip, all sorts of fun things. Same with the blush. You can see the effect there. Forehead retouching. Not really going to work on this example because we have a ball cap and hair covering the forehead. Cheek retouching. It's just like a bigger blush, really. Chin retouching. What do we got? Yeah. Chin retouching. You can change the hue. I don't know why you would want to make your chin green or red. Saturation, if you want a saturated chin. And then global blend. You can see this is without, all the way to the right, and slider all the way to the left is full on. So I would probably dial it down to look natural. That's actually looking pretty good to me. So that is one method, which is very nice. I'm going to save that. Now let's get rid of that. Let's reset that node. So we're back to square one after we've done our color correction and we have our contrast and we're happy with the image, but we just want to touch up the skin a little bit. This is the manual way, and this is what I've been using for a while, and I find it's just more accurate, and it's just easier to manipulate, and you just have a little bit more control and consistency. So what I do, I go down to the shapes, I create a circle shape, and then I adjust it so the bottom part is at the bottom of the chin, and then I just create an oval going around the actual face there, bring out the softness, and then I go down to the tracker, keep it in window, and then where you are, you can just push play to the right and then play back to the left. And that does a pretty good job of tracking on its own, but if there are issues, find the frame where it starts to move, go over to your keyframes over here, select the drop-down menu, hit color, and you can see you're on corrector 3. We're on node 3. That's what we want. Right-click, dynamic keyframe, and now what we're going to do is move it for it. So here's where it really starts to move. I'm going to create one more dynamic keyframe here, because in between the first 2 keyframes, I'm not really in that much trouble. But from this second keyframe that I created, this is where the shape really starts to drift away. So I'm going to go to the end of its drift, create another dynamic keyframe, and then just go up and just pull that down manually. And you can see it interpolates in between right there. I might just create another one just to smooth it out a little bit. Let me create one more here. Move that up. Move that. And there's probably a better way to do this. This is how I do it. And then you're pretty much good. Once you have your mask all put together and tracked over the face, your next step will be to find a nice frame within this clip where you can now take your eyedrop tool. So go right here, it's right beside the curves. And you're just going to eyedrop over the skin and select a range. So I pushed Shift H here so I could see what I'm highlighting. And then what you want to do is just finesse that. So clean the whites a little bit. You can move this stuff around. It's just a lot of, manually tweaking, finessing, trying to find that best point. You can also hit the plus feather button here and click on spots that you want in that maybe didn't make it, and it will just feather its way in. That's looking pretty good. And if you play it back, that's already a really nice key. So now that I have the skin qualified, and I'm pretty happy with the key, it's not perfect. To get a perfect key, you gotta spend a lot of time. Okay. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Okay. Turn that off, and now what you do is you go down to the bottom left. Make sure you're in your color wheels. Go down to the 1 and 2, select 2, go to Midtone Detail, and dial that back somewhere in between -50 and no further than -70. Toggle that on and off. And so what that's doing is just affecting the detail in the midtone range. And you can see right away that it does a really nice job of softening the skin, removing some of that shine, and just making it overall more flattering, which is very nice. People are going to be very happy. Yeah, and that's wonderful. So that's pretty much what I do most of the time. If I need to do an highlight, I'll just create another node. I'll create a shape. What I was talking about before, the raccoon shape, the raccoon goggles. Just put it here. And what you want to do is track that again. Great. So we're not going to worry about the keyframing, because that's going to take up too much time. But now that that is tracked, I can go in and I can adjust midtones, just kind of enhance that just a little. Midtones, highlights. You don't want to do it too much, otherwise it really looks like you have done some post-processing, and you don't want anyone to know. Before, after, before, after, before, after, before, after. So this is looking really good. Really happy with this. So another thing that we can do to really make this face pop, I'm going to create another node. And I'm going to create, not a circle, I'm going to create a rectangular vignette. I just like the rectangular look. Softness, I usually go anywhere between 10 and 20 on all sides. Adjust that to taste. I'm not even going to track this because there's not enough motion in the shot to worry about it, but you can track that shape as well if you want to keep it on a subject. Then what you're going to do is select the invert function right here, invert that, and then I go right to offset, and then I just, go to offset and I dial that down and just really let that pop. Before, after, before, after. You're really just drawing attention to your subject. So that's really nice. I'm happy with the skin. Didn't waste too much time. You really want to be efficient when you're color grading, otherwise you can end up wasting an entire day on only a few shots. You never get anywhere. So I'm happy with this, and I think I'm ready to move on. So that's the second method. For me, that's the most commonly used approach because I can control it more. I can finesse it. I can be much more consistent with my skin retouching, and it has a very good final result, which most of my clients are quite happy with. So hope that helps. Give me a shout, to leave a comment if you have any questions on anything. If you're stuck with the process, let me know, and I'll get back to you.